We got art projects going on. It's gonna be a good night. Y'all like my art projects? Who's seen my art projects before one of these seminars? Well, man, first of all, before we get started on this, by the way, David Ozio is going to join us for the seminar tonight. As y'all can see behind us, we've obviously got this weather threatening us, and we may have to put this thing on pause for a while, but David went to put his boat up because some of the stuff looks like it might rain pretty hard, but he'll be back in a minute. Before we get started talking about fishing stuff and techniques, I haven't really thought out what I need to say right here, but I feel like it's important that I say something because I've had a lot of conversations with people over the last week leading up to this event. I've had some today with this gentleman right here and the other fellows from 22 Kill. And it's probably the most important thing I've ever done in my life. The magnitude of the issue that we're trying to attempt to help address is way beyond what I think most of us understand. We're all sitting here wanting to go fish. Yeah, we want to support our troops. That's kind of the general feeling of this evening and this event, which you guys know that are here. The seminar is kicking off our Fish Life Forever Grateful Weekend, and we're going to make this an annual deal around the 4th of July where we do a tournament to benefit 22 Kill, which is an organization that works towards preventing veteran and first responder suicide in those communities. And me and Mr. Blake, this is Blake from 22 Kill over here to my right. David's back. Got to listen to him, actually got to see a video of a hunting show that he did and listen to him tell a story. And the ironic thing, I didn't know this till afterwards, but me and this gentleman were in the same sandbox, dirt hole part of the world at the same time, in the same province. Like, we've kicked the same dirt. And I'm not really good at articulating a lot of the things that I went through in my head. In fact, those of you that watch my channel know I really don't ever talk about it. I mean, yeah, I'm in the Marine Corps. I'm proud that I was in the Marine Corps and all that, but I never really speak about any of the real stuff. And I don't really know how. And he did a great job in that hunting show of putting it out there. And I got to say, to guys like Blake and the organization like 22 Kill, just even seeing that hunting show and seeing somebody else put that story out there, it's important. It's really, really important, because I had one of the easiest roads that a Marine could haul at that time in that area. I'm by no means any type of war hero, or I didn't do anything, man. So many guys had it so much worse than I had it over there at the same time, including Blake. This is an important thing. We have guys that go do what very few are willing to do. And the reason that this country, despite all the chaos that's happening in 2020, despite all the chaos, this is still the best nation that's ever existed in the history of everything. There's never been a collection of human beings that's done it better than the United States has right now. And the reason that that exists in the current state that it does is because of these guys that are willing to go over there and do what they do and go through what they go through. And then to have those people that are willing to sacrifice everything come home and have a hard time functioning to a point where they even consider suicide, and way too many of them actually follow through and commit suicide. There's nothing I've ever done that's as important as this in my entire life, and that's how I feel about it. So I see Miss Passenger over there. She's draped in the red, white, and blue. This young man over here is wearing the flag on his shirt, flag on his emblem. Hey, this is real. I love y'all. You understand that? I love y'all. Yeah.
Don't blow your nose on it.
Yeah. I sincerely appreciate everything that you guys do for what we've been able to do to build this platform. And my biggest dream out of when I started grinding away, putting out social media content, was that someday I could do something kind of like this. So thank y'all very much. All right, that being said, we appreciate y'all showing up. We're going to get all the items displayed out here. We're going to get tournament registration going as soon as we kind of feel a little better about this weather. And as soon as my partner shows up with the daggone registration forms. Hey, there he is, Cody Brunet. Everybody give Cody a big hand. All right, there he is. Okay, so before we start talking fishing, if y'all don't mind, I'm going to pause. We're going to get registration set up, and you guys can file in one or two at a time and register while we're doing the seminar. Is that okay with everybody? Yep. Pause for a few minutes. Here we go. I'm going to try to get this thing cranked back up one more time. Y'all ready? Okay, so for the seminar topic tonight, first, thank y'all for your patience and understanding on the weather issues and your continued patience and understanding. I feel like it might be going to get worse here in a minute. So when you start talking about summertime fishing, it's July 4th. It's hot, guys. You know what I mean? Like, we're summertime fishing. I actually saw some water temps at 90 degrees in the back of a creek today. First time all year I've seen 90. So it's getting up there. We always talk about structure fishing in the summertime. Now, when I say structure fishing, how deep of water are we thinking about? Somebody raise their hand and tell me, how deep of water do you think when I say structure fishing?
15 to 25.
15 to 25. Somebody else? 20 to 30. Okay, we're all talking about deep structure fishing. So tonight, the topic that I wanted to address and I want to talk to you guys about is I want to talk about structure fishing in any depth. Because there's a whole lot of fish that gather on structure in 5, 8, 10 foot, 2 foot, but they still gather on very similar structures, okay? And they use it, and a lot of these fish that are in these shallower depth structures are very much an untapped resource this time of year, okay? How many boats do y'all see out there on the main lake? All of them. The number is all of them. And I can tell you there's a lot of areas that you can run to on this lake and get in the back of a creek or halfway back in a creek and find some dynamic structure, offshore structure, okay? It's not on the bank. You're nowhere. You can't reach the bank with 3 casts, but the water's not deep. And you can find some really good groups of fish on that same type of structure just in shallower water. So I drew a couple examples here, and these are 2 real examples on Lake Fork that I fish, okay? One is very much a community hole as it gets, main lake structure in deeper water that we always fish in the summertime, and one is in like 2 foot on the top and like 5 to 6 foot in the deep part, okay? But as you look at these contour lines, okay, what we have right here, if you look, you've got a long point extending out, got a little bit of a low spot in between, then you got a hump out here on the end. Can everybody see that? Slide that back just a little bit. Long point, low spot, hump. Over here, what we've got a round point, right? We've got a round point, we've got another round point. Then we've got another, this is actually a hump out here. So you've got 2 round points and then a hump. Now who can tell me which one's deep and which one's shallow? The one on my right or your right? This one's deeper? Okay, anybody else? Which one's the deep hole? You think the right one's deep? Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Just because it extends longer? Okay. I may have should have done a little better job disguising it. My point was to try and tell you, like, there's really no difference. Like, they're both the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't the bank. By the way, this isn't the bank. On this is the shallower one, but the bank's like way over here. So they're very similar structures. You got points running out with a low spot with humps. The difference is this is a creek. This right here is a creek, and this is a secondary channel right here, okay? This isn't a creek or a secondary channel. This is just a low spot, a saddle. And then the other big difference is, okay, this is, did I do this right, David?
Yes, because I was gonna make a comment about this. Last week, I was fishing an exact spot just like this. We had 4 days in a row where those fish were there. They were there 4 straight days, and we caught 6 and 7 pounders going out of style, and then they were gone. And I've been back there every day to check it since, and they haven't been there in 8 days.
Yeah.
They were there for 4 straight days and then gone on the exact spot just like that.
So that's something else we're going to talk about later, is the difference in how the fish relate and live their lives around the main lake structure in more open water and the offshore structure that's in a little more confined water, because there's a difference in how those fish relate to those and behave around them throughout the year. So on this one, this is 25 plus out here. This is like 10, 11, then like 14. I was just asking if I actually wrote the number correctly upside down. That's all I was asking.
Actually, the place that I was in, this was 22.
Okay.
It was right in the saddle that I was fishing.
Well, good. You're not hole jumping me then.
I'm not.
And then this would be 10 and 11, right? So this is kind of the depth on my main lake structure. That's kind of a normal thing that everybody, it's a spot, a lot of people fish this spot. It's a spot that not a lot of people fish. I can tell you that. I fished it for years. Hardly anybody fishes it. But the difference is this creek, okay, is 10 foot, right? And then this is like 6. Is that the right way to do it?
No, it's backwards.
There you go.
6. Hell with it. Here we go. 5.
See, if you were dyslexic, you could do that perfectly.
That's right. So here's the difference. This is 10 foot down in the bottom, and then you got 6 foot, 5 foot, 4 foot. 6 foot, 5 foot, 4 foot. But what I do have is a really sharp drop from 6 to 10. Just like out here, all along the side, I got a really sharp drop from anywhere from 10 to 14, then all of a sudden, boom, down to 25. Now that's on a bigger scale, but it's kind of a similar ratio, right? Right? So y'all see what I'm saying? Y'all see how you can find similar things in skinnier water. And this is, you know, you guys, if you watch like the pro tours, you see these guys like Greg Hackney or Andy Morgan or Brian Thrift, a lot of these guys that you'll see them fish in shallow water year round. But rare, unless it's spring or fall, rarely do you see them on the bank. Does that make sense? Like that deal, who watched the heavy hitters tournament in Florida? The MLF heavy hitters? So we got one to watch. Nobody else watched that? The heavy hitters? I'm gonna tell you, if y'all don't quit being shy, I'm gonna start. I got a bunch of former military guys. We can start yelling at some people.
I saw that shit, Billy, I'm telling you.
My man. Yeah, hey, let it rip, baby. It's all good.
All right, we're good then.
So at the heavy hitters, if you watch Brian Thrift, he looked like he was out in the middle of the lake, but they're in Florida. Like, what were they on the Harris? Was it the Harris chain they were on? Kissimmee chain? Kissimmee chain. Either way, it's a Florida lake. The deepest water is like this deep in the whole lake. And he's out, and it looks like he's fishing out here off the end of Dale Point, you know? But he's fishing this much water. But the deal is he found structure out in the middle of the pond that will gather them. When I go out every day as a guide, and by the way, if I'm a 5-fish stringer tournament guy or any kind of a tournament guy, really, if I'm competing and trying to catch the best fish I can every day, right?
Call somebody who knows how to fish.
That's true. I would need to call somebody who knows how to fish. And then what we need to do together is we need to go looking for 2 things. We're looking for groups of fish and really big fish. That's the only 2 things that anybody, I don't care if they're anybody fishing for a living, they're looking for 2 things. The last thing we want to do, the worst thing that we can have, the worst bite we can have as professionals in bass fishing is a bite, junk fishing. I got one here, I got one there, I got one there. Man, that's work. And if anything goes wrong, you miss a few or you miss the bite a little bit, you're done. Your day's done. So we're always looking for groups and bigs. Well, this is the type of stuff that gathers groups and bigs. And sometimes it's groups of bigs. And that's when you go, yeah, I'm awesome at fishing, right? That day you're awesome at fishing. So this is what we're looking for. That's what Brian Thrift found down there in that flat Florida water. He found him some structure, a hump, something. I don't know, I wasn't fishing with him, but I know because I've been in that scenario so many times. And my greatest success since I've been full-time fishing has been to find these shallower pieces of structure. Gunny Boone fished some of the same type of stuff with me. And you see it go down, and it kind of blows people's minds because it might be July or August, and we'll get back there in a couple feet of water, and we might catch 10, 15 fish off one spot, and like half of them be over 5 or 6 pounds. Like we're talking about some home run, middle of the lake, offshore structure fishing, but in a couple feet of water. So it works the same. The added bonus in these East Texas lakes, and really most of the lakes in the South, is that, all right, holla. I think that was a honk for 22 kill, I don't know. The added bonus is a lot of these places like this, around here have the magic sauce. Who knows what the magic sauce is? Little fuzzy stuff that grows onto your hair. We're talking about grass. These will have grass. This will all be grass. Grass. Now what do I got? I got grass, deep grass edges. I got 10 foot of water with a grass edge on it. I've got oxygen rich water. I've got algae, plankton rich water for the bait fish. I've got cover for the bait fish to hide and bury up in. I've got ambush alleys and points for the big fish to hunt in. So anytime you get grass in bass fishing, it soups it up, right? Well, around here, if you can find some main lake structure, some middle of the creek structure with grass edges on it, boys, I promise you, It's Lake Fork, so these fish you may not catch them today because these fish do get a lot of pressure out here. But if you find some stuff like that, I promise you there's 100% always groups and bigs on this stuff. Every single day of the year. The only time there's not groups of them is when they start spreading out in spring and fall. When they start kind of roaming, then there's not necessarily groups because they got all this grass and they got this huge grass flat that's all the way over here and they can spread out on it when everything's right at the right time of year. But most of the year, there's groups and bigs right here. Okay. Yeah, my biggest success, and not that, you know, some of my biggest bags have come on this type of stuff, but for sure my biggest bags versus what the rest of the lake was producing have 100% come on this shallow water offshore structure. Okay, and I know a lot of guys that like to fish shallow and they get up there and they get on the bank and they fish visible cover and they go to work and they're good. Like, they're good at it. They work that frog better than you do. They're more patient with that wacky worm than you are. And they get up there and they whoop your butt running down the bank. Like, who's fished against some people like that? We all, everybody's shaking their head. We all have, okay? But I'll take that dude's money on this. Maybe not every day, but most days I will, okay? If he doesn't get out and find this, when I find this, he's done, okay? So the way to really fish shallow year-round and be consistent is to focus on the structure. When you get out here on these lakes that are full of cover, and even when you're fishing deeper structure, you know, a lot of people look at the timber out here, they want to fish the timber, they want to fish brush piles, they want to fish all this stuff. The number one thing that I can tell each and every one of you guys when you get to summertime and you have to start worrying about structure, because we have to fish offshore structure, whether it's in deep water or shallow water. Number one thing I can tell you is pay zero attention to the cover. Everybody know the difference between cover and structure? Cover is trees, grass, lily pads, stuff they can hide around, brush piles. Structure is the bottom contour changes. Humps, pond dams, ledges, creek bends, that's structure. Ignore the cover, focus only on the structure. Find the dynamic pieces of structure in all depths of this lake. When you get to those pieces of structure, fish the cover that is present. If there's no cover present, but you got a great hump out in the middle of the lake, you can fish it with techniques that are good for open water. Swim baits on jig heads, flutter spins, Alabama rigs, crankbaits, all these things that are good in open water you can fish on. But if you get to that piece of structure and it's heavily timbered, all right, we need my jig and we need my Texas rig. See what I'm saying? So the way that I think about it when I'm fishing this lake, I don't consider what cover is there ever. I only consider the structure, and then once I get there, I fish the cover that's present with whatever technique is most effective. So if I pull back into this structure with that grass all around it, I'm thinking chatterbaits, I'm thinking swim baits, I'm thinking weightless plastics, okay? Because all of those techniques are very efficient around grass, and I can vary their depths, right? So it's just about breaking down what kind of cover is present on this dynamic piece of structure and then assessing what technique will work best. You know, that's one of the hardest things when people ask you, hey, what's the best bait to throw? Well, man, it depends on what cast I'm making. You know what I mean? And then there's wind you got to factor. Like, there's so many pieces to this puzzle. But if you can focus on the structure and get good at that and efficient at finding that dynamic structure, man, your consistency level will go through the roof. That's one of the things I prided myself on over the years, is I don't always maybe catch the 40 or 50 pound bag out here like some guys will. You know, Mark Pack's kind of notorious. He'll pop up a 40 or 50 pound bag on you, and it's like, where'd that come from? And I've had a couple of, you know, 40. I've had two 40 pound bag days out here. So I've just had a couple, and they're rare. They're rare even for Pac-Man. You know what I mean? But Pac will tend to do that a little more than others. But one thing I've been super proud of myself is I've been able to, I believe, best I can tell, is I've been as consistent as anybody has out here over the last few years. You know, and the only way I can judge that is social media posts, and then when we have group trips and stuff like that, you know, you can kind of measure yourself a little bit. We're going to get a chance to measure ourselves on Sunday, ain't we? God started. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And from the best I can tell, when I've lined up in those group trips, I haven't won them by any means. I think I've only like won one of them, maybe two, but I've been in the top 3 or 4 or 5 of almost every one that I've ever been in. I think I have been in every one I've ever been in. And the reason I can be consistent is because I'm finding groups on structure, or I'm sight fishing, and if they're on beds, then I'm gonna catch all of them. So Probably not. I don't catch most of them, but I like it, and I enjoy it, and I get after them when we're bed fishing. So, is there any questions so far about finding structure or how to locate or anything like that? Pretty straightforward. Okay, good. And y'all understand what we're talking about? Like, these are where the contour lines bunch up on your map. You're trying to find those types of dynamic changes in the water column.
Well, say you're like up near Trout Cove, right?
Yep.
There's freaking 4 acres of lily pads.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you know there's 2 creek channels that go through there.
Mm-hmm.
So the creek channels, based on that, if I'm hearing you right.
Yes. The creek channels will
creek
creep.
channels going through.
Yes.
But they're so matted. How do you? I mean, it's not like electronics work in this situation.
Right. So that's where. So
Find it.
how do you find the creek channel? Great question. Fish it in the wintertime when that grass isn't matted. And then you can use your front sonar as you kind of troll through there and fish your way through there and explore. But when that's not an option, okay, the grass itself will tell you the contour lines. So when grass starts matting up, now you're talking about the lily pads, is that where?
Yeah, you know where
Okay.
you're going in there now, and even where Mark Daniels Jr. up there in.
Yep.
Like there,
First of all, that little drain that he was in, there is no structure in that. The deal that was in the spring of the year when the fish were spawning. So remember what I said, in the springtime they'll get up and they can spread out. Well, that was a place they were funneling into and spreading out in that cove he was fishing. And he just got lucky and hit it on the perfect day when a bunch of them pulled in there. I mean, he'll tell you himself, he got lucky on the day he fished that. Because is that a great little pocket? Yeah, absolutely, it's a great little pocket. Has it ever done anything like what Mark Daniels showed us? Well, the cove probably has. But more importantly, nobody's ever gone up there and executed on every fish that swam in there the way he did. That was one of the most unbelievable fishing performances that has ever been witnessed in the history of the sport. He caught like every single fish that swam in that cove that day. And so, yeah, that was a place where they get in and spread out. There's really not any structure. The only kind of structure would just be the low part, the depression out in the middle. That wasn't what he was fishing. Those fish were getting up on the bank spawning. They were spreading out. That's the one time a year where this really doesn't play.
But there was coontail grass in that pocket also.
Oh, yeah.
In that pocket.
Yes.
And those fish will fan that coontail and make beds in it.
Yep. Yeah, they were definitely in there doing their bedding thing. But your trout pond example is really good. That's perfect. Spot on. So if you actually go into that trout pond area and you look at it and you see all those lily pads, if you look over on the left side, you'll see a little bit of open water running into them behind those old dead willows. Well, that's the main creek channel. So anytime you have matted vegetation, even if it is lily pads, at some point it's going to bottom out. Like, there's always an edge to vegetation. The whole lake's never covered in it. So wherever you start seeing matted vegetation, when you find the edge, there'll always be a seam, something that runs into that vegetation that's a more open spot running in there. That's the depression, that's the drain, that's the channel. So that visually can tell you that. If stumps are out of the water, another way to tell is look for the bigger stump, the biggest stumps in that area. Before these lakes were built, the biggest circumference trees in these woods around here is a live oak tree. A live oak tree also holds its leaves longer than any other hardwood out here does. So it needs more water than anything else does. So the biggest live oak trees grow right on the edge of the low spot.
Also, too.
So if you see the tops of the stumps, if you can see the tops of the stumps, them big live oak trees, if you see those kind of in a line weaving in and out, that's your creek channel. Now, a lot of times you can't see stumps and you do have to rely on that vegetation line. And if it's not matted vegetation, you can use your front graph to explore around and find the drain. I can tell you on trout pond.
While he's drawing.
Go ahead.
A lot of those software packages for your mapping can show you where the creek splits.
Yeah.
And then they're not 100% accurate, but they're going to be fairly close. So what I do when I get in a situation like that and you're in a cluster of lily pads like that, I make a cast, I'll reel the frog all the way up to the end or whatever I'm throwing. I'll stick the rod down in the water, see what the depth is, and I'm going along and I'm looking at and I show a trail of where it splits, and then all of a sudden you stick it down and it goes a little bit deeper. There's your idea. And the creeks aren't going to be really that much deeper. But the mapping can help you to stay in that area. I mean, and then on the hummingbirds, I use hummingbirds, so I can dial a certain setting in there and it'll show me where every drain is in every little pocket on these lakes with that Lake Master chip. The Lake Master chip's pretty cool.
Damn, so I gotta go spend $5,000.
No, but that's just what I use.
No, Lake Master chip's $150.
Lake Master chip is 150, but it's
Lake Master go on the ranch?
Navionics will. Okay, so to explain your trout pond situation, and I mean, when you said trout pond, I know it well. I know every stump, every inch. So, and I wrote this upside down, but that says lily pads for you people at home on the camera. So you got this giant pad field right here, and then you got some pads over here, and you got that little creek that runs back in here, right? Well, and then it runs back off in the trees. You can actually go, yeah. So this is actually the main creek that runs in here, and it runs out here and kind of runs the rim of the mouth of this pocket, and then funnels down that bank going out to the main creek. By the way, this is not even a main creek. This is like a secondary. This is almost a drain. It's just a secondary channel that feeds into the main creek of Birch Creek. Then in Trout Pond, there is no creek itself. There's simply a low spot, which I consider a drain, okay? It's a wider deal that kind of funnels out here. It's just a low spot, right? This right here, where that all meets, and there's stumps all along the edge of both of these.
Isn't there willow bushes out there too?
That's over here.
Okay.
Willow bushes are over here. This is out here where there is no grass. There is no grass. Now sometimes there's some underwater aquatic vegetation out there, coontail, right? Not so much this year, but in years past there's been coontail out here. But this right here, and then this swing right here, okay? Because what does this swing create right here? What is that?
Point.
That is a point, right? That functions as a main leg, maybe kind of secondary-ish point right there. This junction right here creates a point, and a ledge. Well, if you were out here in 20 foot of water on the main lake and you found 2 points and a ledge, you'd be like, oh, whoa. You got it. It's right here. That's it. It's just not in as deep of water. It's not as dramatic. But this is the juice, Bubba. Hey, listen, this is top secret guide stuff, guys. I'm telling you, this is top secret guys. At the mouth of Trout Pond, where that drain meets that creek channel, hey, pull up there in October when they're schooling up on some shad first thing in the morning right there and watch what happens. I have literally had 50 fish mornings. Pull up on the first spot and catch 50 fish right there. It's about finding those depressions and finding those structure changes, and then picturing in your mind, even though the contour lines are so much more subtle in the shallow water, picturing in your mind, what does that, when I draw that out on my map and I really look at that, what does that create? A point, and a ledge. Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
You're going to call us when that happens, right?
What?
Your buds, you're going to call us and let us know when that's going on?
The 50 fish mornings?
Yeah, so we could kind of ease over there and get a cast in?
Yeah, it's October, yeah, whole buzzard. No. Yeah, it's.
Is that going to happen?
It's not every single morning, but usually sometime in the month of October that goes down right there. When they really start getting in big groups in the fall, you can have some unbelievable mornings right there where at that junction right there. Yeah, it can be awesome. So, he's really mad at me right now. He's super mad because I know you live up in Birch, but we've never talked about this, have we? Oh, we've never discussed this. So, yeah, I know. I know I probably monkeys you up right there, but listen, that's what we've always tried to do, and we've always stood by that. We're going to give you all the details, and we're going to go over everything. Now, we're not just real big on exposing everybody's, exact, precise locations like that, but to me, I thought it was important relevant to explain the example. So, great question. Anybody else? No, I'm not doing any more specific spots. No. They're on the Fish Life app. Go subscribe to the Fish Life app. Lake Fork Package. Is it? Yeah. No fish there. All right. Any other questions? Has everybody got a good grasp on what we're talking about, finding structure in different depths? Guys, I'm telling you, if you spend some time on your map study, something you can do at home. Get on the Navionics web app. You can sit right there on your couch watching whatever sports games not on anymore. And since you ain't got no sports games to watch, just watch a recorded one that you've already seen and go looking at some map study and go find you some juice. Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, Mr. David, man, you want to, I'm sure you...
Well, what he's saying is kind of interesting because today we had like 21, except we're fishing in a lot deeper water than he is.
Yeah.
And it was structure.
I'm fishing some of that deep stuff too, but I fish a lot of that.
It was structure, but we had one caveat with it. It had cover also.
Yeah.
In 28 foot. And the interesting thing about today is there was one spot that had 2 skinny trees sticking up on it in 28 foot of water, and we kept hanging up in that tree, and around that tree we kept getting bit. 4 and 5 and 6 pounders in those trees. That was the only place we could get the bites, was on a point that had these 2 trees under the water and they were all relating to those trees. So it's cover on structure. And all you got to do is go around on these points, use your side image, and that's how you find these things. Mark them, waypoint, and I paint them red. I make them red because there's something I'm going to hang up on anyway, whether it's crankbait, whether it's, don't matter what it is, it's going to hang up in it. But those fish were around it and liking it. And then there's other times where you'll find logs laying down. There's a couple of 2 or 3 places on this lake where there's log jams that probably none of you know about. There's 2 log jams on this lake, right? And they're piled up. And strangely enough, they're in 10 foot of water. And there's just logs piled up like this. And you look at it on side image, you go, wow, that's amazing. And so, no, I will not tell you where it is.
You gonna tell your buddies when that goes down?
Wow.
Oh yeah.
We'll have to talk about this.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are the type of things you just have to spend time with the side image, and that's how you find stuff like that.
Hey, let me sidekick on that, because that's true. Because Dave was talking about something a very unique piece of cover with a log jam, and that's awesome. That's really awesome. And whether it's that or whether it's some kind of out of the way dynamic shallow water structure, man, there is no shortcut to putting that time into finding this stuff. Like, there's not. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the strange thing about this too is they're in the most obvious places. Nobody looks there. They're in the most obvious places. Stumble on them when you go in. If you have your side image on, bang, you say, what the heck is that? And you turn around and you go back. I found a spot on Toledo Bend one time. We're idling out of this area in the back of housing. And we're coming out, and I went, whoa, I didn't know that was there. And this was like in late February, early March. And I turned around, and the guy was with, I said, you know what, give me a minute. I flipped the trolling motor over, picked up a 3/4 ounce rattle trap, and I thought, I never knew that was there. Long cast out there, first cast, 8-pounder. We caught 28 pounds in about 15 minutes off this spot that I never ever knew. And therefore, pay attention to your electronics, and then sometimes that just pops up on you when you least expect it. And those things happen all the time. Depends on how much you stay in the water.
100%. One of the best, like, quick, easy tips is if you're not on plane, you better have your side and your down and your sonar running. Because you don't know what, like, if you're just, well, you're running, you got your map up on your big screen, you're running your trail. Well, as soon as you shut down, the first thing that should happen is your sonar and your down and your side should come on. You should switch over, because you have no idea what you're missing. If you just start idling back into a shallow area to fish and you don't bother turning, you're going somewhere you fished before, you don't need to graph it, whatever. How do you know you didn't just miss the mother lode? Like, this is what I tell people, and you heard what I said, sonar, side, and down. All of them. Whatever your graph will do. If you're going to read a book, are you going to skip any paragraphs?
Yes.
If you're going to read a book and you're not a Marine, are you going to skip any paragraphs?
I need lots of pictures, brother.
But y'all know what I'm saying? Like, you want all the information when you're trying to find out the details of a story. That is exactly what you're doing on your electronics. You're trying to get a story told to you about what's under that surface. Whether it be fish, structure, cover, whatever, you're being told a story of what you can't see. You can't visibly see it, so that's where you're reading it at. Well, if you're not using everything your graph will do to your advantage, you're skipping chapters of the story. You're missing important plot twists. You know what I mean? So, sorry.
No.
You gotta watch me. I'll just take off and run, take over everything. You go. If you got something good.
That's what I was just bringing up, the fact that structure and cover can go hand in hand. And there's a lot of places on this lake right now that have that. And I spent the last 2.5 weeks, I haven't fished shallower than 25 foot. Not one day. Not one single day.
That's always my favorite part, man.
And
doing it completely opposite and both effective. You know what I mean?
25 to 30 foot. And most of these fish I'm catching right now are in 29, 30 foot. And so few people look there, but I mean, the graph is the key. You ease up on something. Now I might graph 20 points every day. And here's the strange thing about it. We've had several of these places. All of a sudden we pulled up, look, let's try this. We swing back around, we'll catch them right there that day. All right, you come back tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, the day after that, they're not there. A couple, 2 or 3 of those places, they ain't been back there in 12 days. It's like, wow. So you have to just keep hitting them. And those groups are running on to places like that, and those places all will eventually show up. And so that's what we have to do whenever we're running on guide trips day in and day out. I burn 3/4 of a tank of gas most every day, because we cover from one end all the way around to the other side, everything in between. And there'll be some strange days that all of a sudden they're in this spot right here, and they haven't been there since the deep bite started. And we've already had that happen. I had a spot I'm catching them on right now. We didn't start catching them there till 5 days ago. They were not there. Checked it, and have now caught them every day for 5 straight days in a row. So, will they be there tomorrow? Don't know. Who knows? But I had, like I showed you on that saddle, oh man, that was some serious fun. And there was 5, 6, 7, 8 pounders on that saddle, and they were there for 3 straight days. And it's like, man, oh man, hope nobody finds this. And we actually got a good shot at it, you know, and then the 4th day, done. All right, they'll be here the day after. And the more important thing that goes along with this, whenever you're catching fish on a certain spot, note the time. Too many people pass that up. And the timing is when a lot of this happens. And that in particular spot was 2 o'clock. I promise you they were not there at 1 o'clock, and we'd come back there and look, and at 2 o'clock, all of a sudden there's arches. And I was like, whoa, look at this, unbelievable.
Yeah, that seems to be, you know, that factor plays harder and harder, it seems like, in the summertime, the hotter it gets.
Yeah.
Like the hotter it gets, the more on a schedule they'll start getting, where they'll be over here at this time, and they'll be over here at this time. And, you know, when you're running offshore structure, that can be one of the biggest factors. If your timing's off,
Yeah.
you can be having a terrible day. But if your timing's on, you can kind of catch them everywhere you go sometimes.
Well,